If you're in your 30s, there's a good chance this situation feels familiar. You're not confused about what you need to do. You're not waiting for clarity. You're not lacking ideas. You know what matters. But starting feels heavier than it used to. Not because you've lost motivation, but because life feels fuller, louder, and more demanding. In your 30s, effort carries weight. Every task feels connected to something bigger. Your career, your stability, your health, your future. Starting isn't just starting anymore, it feels like it means something. There's also a shift that happens quietly in your 30s. Your identity becomes more defined. You're no longer experimenting as freely. You're maintaining what you've built. You've become the reliable one, the professional one, the responsible one. Starting something new means being a beginner again. It means uncertainty. It means not being in control yet. And for a brain that values stability, that can feel uncomfortable. This is why avoidance at this age often looks reasonable. It sounds like, I'll do it after work. I'll do it when I'm less tired. I'll do it when things slow down. But things rarely slow down. Responsibilities stack, days blur together, and delay quietly becomes the pattern. Not because you chose it, but because your brain learned that delay reduces pressure in the moment. In your 30s, your brain is often managing multiple invisible systems at once: work expectations, financial concerns, relationships, health, long-term planning. Even when you're resting, your mind isn't fully off. So when you sit down to start something meaningful, your brain asks, do we really have the capacity for this right now? And if the answer feels uncertain, it defaults to the safest option: delay. You sit down, you open your laptop, you know what you're supposed to do. It's not confusing, it's not unclear, you're not lost. The task is right there, and yet, you don't start. You check your phone, you scroll for a moment. You tell yourself you'll begin after this. A few minutes pass, then more time passes. And eventually, that familiar feeling shows up. Frustration, guilt, that quiet pressure in the back of your mind. You think, I should be doing better than this. I know what to do, so why am I not doing it? This video is about understanding why starting feels so hard, even when you genuinely want to move forward with your life. Most people explain this problem in one word: laziness. But laziness doesn't really explain this behavior. If you can focus on things you enjoy, but freeze when it comes to work, finances, health, or responsibilities, that's not laziness. That's something else. Here's an important truth. Your brain does not care about productivity. It cares about comfort. It cares about stability. It cares about avoiding stress and overload. Progress feels optional. Stability feels necessary. So when progress threatens comfort, comfort usually wins. When you think about starting a task, your brain doesn't look at it logically. It runs a quick prediction. It asks questions like, will this drain me? Will this feel heavy? What if I can't do this well? What if this just adds more pressure to my day? If the task feels uncertain, demanding, or emotionally loaded, your brain treats it as something to delay. Not because it's dangerous, but because it feels like more weight on an already full plate. And when your brain senses that pressure ahead, it creates resistance. That resistance doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't feel like panic. It feels quiet. It feels like hesitation, like distraction, like suddenly needing to clean, check messages, or do something small first. This is where many people get confused. They think the task itself is the problem, but the real issue is anticipation. Before you start, your brain fills in the future. It imagines effort. It imagines stress. It imagines exhaustion. It imagines the feeling of being behind again. That imagined future creates tension. Your shoulders tighten. Your chest feels heavy. Your mind feels crowded. And your brain looks for a fast way to make that tension stop. Here's the loop most people don't notice. First, you think about the task. Second, your brain predicts pressure or discomfort. Third, your body reacts with tension. Fourth, you delay or avoid. And the moment you avoid it, something important happens. You feel relief, even a small amount of relief. That relief teaches your brain a simple lesson. This feels better. So your brain remembers it. Over time, this pattern becomes automatic. You're not consciously choosing avoidance. Your brain is choosing comfort for you before you even realize it. This is why starting feels harder than continuing. Once you finally begin, things often improve. The tension fades, your focus sharpens, the task feels more manageable than you expected. But before you start, everything feels heavy. That's because starting is uncertain, and your life already comes with enough uncertainty. Continuing feels safer than beginning. So your brain resists the moment that feels like it could add more pressure to your day. This is also why advice like "just start" rarely helps. That advice assumes you're fully in control. But most behavior is automatic. By the time you're telling yourself to act, your brain has already made a choice. That's why motivation fades when you're tired. Why willpower disappears after long days. Why stress makes even simple tasks feel overwhelming. This is because you're dealing with a learned response. So if we step back for a moment, what's really stopping you from starting? It usually comes down to a few simple things your brain is doing. First, your brain chooses comfort over progress because comfort feels safe. Second, your brain predicts discomfort before you act. It imagines effort, stress, or pressure and reacts to that imagined future. Third, your brain creates tension to push you away from the task. That heaviness you feel isn't random. It's a signal meant to slow you down. Fourth, your brain rewards avoidance with relief. The moment you delay, you feel better, and your brain remembers that. And fifth, your brain turns this into an automatic pattern. Over time, it stops asking for permission and runs the loop on its own. None of these happen because you lack willpower. They happen because your brain is doing what it's designed to do. So here's a better way to look at this. You don't struggle to start because you lack discipline. You struggle because your brain learned to connect starting with pressure and discomfort. And learned behavior can change. It changes through understanding how the loop works. And that leads to a bigger question. If your brain learns these patterns so easily and repeats them automatically, how do habits actually form? Why do small choices turn into routines? Why do patterns repeat even when you want change? And why are habits so hard to stop once they're established? In the next episode, we'll break down how habits form, why repetition matters more than intention, and how short-term relief quietly turns into long-term behavior. Because struggling to start is just one example. Habits are where this loop really takes over. See you in the next video.